final situation. I mean, it never has been. You know, I don't think they should space anything out anymore. I think the challenge of the Triple Crown is that it's, 3 races close together, and it takes a champion. Hey, it takes a justify, to win those kind of races.
Bill, I mean, we were all talking about Tacitus going in. Did you think Country House had that kind of effort in him?
I thought he had the effort in him. I really believed in him. I was very surprised that he broke and was as close to the pace as he was. I would have thought, it would have been the other way around. I thought Tacitus would have been up in the position that Country House was, and I thought Country House would have been out the back a little more, the position where Tacitus was. But that's why it's so interesting. You don't know until they open the gate what's going to happen.
But when would the decision be made, or when we have the talk about Preakness?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that discussion will probably start in the next day or two. I'm sure it'll begin probably at some point today.
Bill, is racing now has a big moment of controversy, like so many major sports do, with a call that people can look at as good, bad, or otherwise. How do you feel that impacts the sport?
I really believe that the call that was made yesterday shows the integrity of the sport. I think it wasn't an easy call, but if they let that go yesterday, I think it would have been, much more talked about.
Do you have your doubts that they might leave him?
I don't see that. I mean, I guess we'll probably know by 6:30 this evening. I don't know if they if somebody's gonna claim foul on the call, if they're gonna have an objection. I don't know. They probably have 24 hours to do it.
Were you surprised that there was no initial inquiry?
There's so much confusion there.
Right.
I really wasn't aware of what happened and the extent of it. You see horses going in different directions, but just watching it, through the binoculars and trying to watch 2 horses at the same time, I really didn't see what happened. Jose Ortiz got off his horse, got off Tacitus, and he was right behind it. He said, there was a lot of bumping going on, and he said there was a real incident, at that point. And he said, I think, in his mind, he said they've got to take it down. I mean, for him, I mean, just the way he was looking at it, and he probably had the best view of anybody, and he thought it was a no-brainer.
What did Flavian say to you?
I don't even know if he realized the extent of it, because most of it happened right inside of him. I mean, he was outside. They came over and they bumped our horse at kind of the end result, and kind of turned him sideways a little bit. But he was out. He was clear enough where he could recover well. It wasn't like he got squeezed from both sides. And I think he was riding, and I don't think he really realized how traumatic it was, to the horses inside of him, which I'm sure, can happen. I don't think that it wasn't like he was looking at it this way. He's looking down the racetrack, and then, he gets bumped, and he probably didn't realize the extent of it.
Was it Flavian's decision to make the objection, or did you?
I don't know how it all. I talked to him. I talked to Jose, and then I don't know when the objection was lodged. I don't know even if they have quick official here? They do. I don't know if one of the other riders, I believe
John Court, they said.
John Court should have, because he really got bothered. I mean, I would have thought he probably lodged an objection. He did. Pulling up. Yeah.
He was on the phone right before Flavian.
Yeah. Well, I sent Flavian to the phone. I said, you need to get in there and talk to him. So.
Had he said something to you before you sent him to the phone, or was that based on what Jose said?
It was mostly based on what Jose said, actually. And then of course I had to go look at the films like everybody else. I mean,
So what was that like for you? I mean, you go from being thrilled your horse was second to thinking all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, we could win. I mean, what was that like for you?
Well, it was pretty like,
Holy shit.
like, I don't know if this could really happen. You know what I mean? When they crossed the wire, I thought, boy, both these horses would be tough in Belmont. You know? And it's just kind of numbing, actually. I mean, you just wait. And I was getting pelted with, should they take down? I said, look, I'm not a steward. You know what I mean? And they've got the ability to see things that I don't. I mean, they can slow the films down. They can see what happened. And, I can't, judge it as well as they can from where I was at.
People who've won the Derby say it's an out-of-body experience. Did you have the opportunity to have that out-of-body experience?
Not as much as I would have had the horse cross finish line 3 in front. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same, I'm sure. So glad I'm thrilled that it won.
Usually that kind of melee happens on the first turn, in the Derby. You think more. Do they make that same call, you think, if it was the first turn?
No. It's such a critical point in the race. When you reach the quarter pole, there's really, particularly in a dirt race, there's no time to, put the brakes on and then go again. I mean, you could see that the 2 horses that got bothered, apart from War Will, Long Range Toddy and Bodie Express, they didn't recover at all. You know what I mean? Once they got hammered, they were done. If it happens leaving the gate, it happens in the first turn, those horses are still on the bridle. I mean, it's happening, and then they regain their position, and then they make their run. But once they've started to make their run leaving the 3/8 pole, which most of them probably do, I think they start, putting them to the test, at that point. Once they get stopped there, it's really hard to recover. It takes a super horse to recover. Yeah, I mean, even with Tacitus there, I mean, he kind of came out of it, and then he got down the backside and had time to get in his rhythm again, all the way down the backside, and he waited until he left the 3/8 pole, and then he started picking them up in a totally different situation.
Do you almost have a sense of obligation to go to the Preakness for that during your...
Yeah, they kind of you get shamed into it a little bit, for sure. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't, you got no balls, and what's wrong with the horse, and how can you not go to the pre? So those that's all part of it, and you have an obligation to go. Well, everybody wants to see the Derby winner in the Preakness.
Did you talk with Gary West or Jason Service?
I saw Jason leaving as we crossed the track going back to the tunnel. I saw Jason. He was gracious. He said, "Congratulations," and I said, "Look, man, I'm sorry it happened this way." And hey, Jason's a professional. I'm sure he's a great horseman, and I'm sure he feels terrible, but. It is what it is.
You guys know each other, Bill? At all?
I've known him for a long time, just casually. Hello, good morning. How are you? Congratulations. It's a casual relationship, as it is with a lot of people on the backside, but not. I wouldn't say, dear friends.
Bill, the racing officials upstairs. In your mind, why would they have not posted an inquiry? If they have all the angles to look at, why would they have not posted an inquiry?
Well, it happens so fast. I mean, I'm sure there's other placing judges spotted around the racetrack, and I don't know whether the placing judges called it in. There's probably somebody, watching it. I don't know the reason for that. Sometimes they need to have it brought to their attention so they can look. I mean, things are happening fast for them too. There's 20 horses to look at, and you just can't see the whole race, in the time it takes them to run through the stretch. So, I think they need time to look at it as well. That's why they allow the jockeys to make an objection. I mean, they're involved, so they need to have it brought to their attention, so they do take a look at that particular incident.
Coach Fletcher was saying that first reaction was that the stewards would probably swallow their whistle, but as it went on, he thought it was more and more likely that they'd be taken down. What was your, I guess, evolution of thinking as the time passed?
I think I felt the same way, but I wasn't, you know, counting the chickens before they hatch, you know. You know, I just waited. I didn't know what was going to happen. You know, I just know that in these types of races, that they are very reluctant to have to take the horse down. I mean, they don't want to have to do it for, you know, a lot of reasons. And the horse was, you know, that they took down was, I guess, the close time favorite. And, you know, a lot of people bet millions of dollars on that horse, so it's gonna affect a lot of people. And so they want to make the right decision. They want to make a fair decision. And I think that's why they looked at it for so long. You know, it made it a tough call for them.
Bill, if you guys didn't speak about the Preakness last night, what did you speak about?
Same things we're talking about right now. You know, I just wanted the owners to be able to enjoy the moment instead of, you know, having to feel guilty about winning. I mean, it's you know, it's like a once in a lifetime, you know, thing for most people, maybe even for myself, who knows. But you don't want to have to feel like, you know, you've taken something that you shouldn't have, you know, and you want to feel like it's justified.
And how did you celebrate last night? How did
What's
you
that?
guys, what did you guys do last night? How did you celebrate?
Well, by the time we got out of here, there wasn't much time. I guess I think it was 9:30, 10 o'clock before we actually got back to the barns. We checked the horses, and then we stopped at Joe's Older Than Dirt Tavern and ate a hamburger and had a couple beers.
Hey Bill, what's the plan in terms of training? Are they staying here, go to Saratoga?
They'll stay here for a few days till we, you know what I mean. I think if we're considering going to Pimlico, rather than move twice, I'd say we've got a barn here. Kenny McCarthy is my assistant here. Horse will stay here. The same riders are here that have been getting on the horses. So, you know, we'll start moving a few horses probably tomorrow up to Saratoga. But the two horses that ran in the Derby won't be on that ship.
If you did go to Pimlico, would you probably go the week of the race?
I think so. It seems like, you know, we're here. We can probably better evaluate the horse if he stays here for a few days and then go over. I think a lot of people ship in on, you know, there's usually a plane going on in there on Tuesday or Wednesday, and that's probably what we do.
Do you have an opinion on whether maximum security veering out was the horse doing that on his own, or was it driver error?
I very strongly believe that it was the horse. Yeah, I mean, he, you know, why, I don't know. Sometimes we don't know the reason why horses don't run straight. You know, I don't know that maybe he saw something, you know, being a green horse. I mean, there's 100,000 people here, you know, maybe he, something caught his eye and he ducked out a little bit, but he probably caught Louis off guard a little bit. I'm sure Louis didn't do that intentionally. He's an aggressive rider, but I don't think he's a careless rider. And I believe the horse just kind of got the jump on him, so to speak, when he bore out. Whether he could have even corrected it or not, it's hard to know. That happens so fast. You know, you know, I mean, he did try to keep the horse in, but the horse, you know, going 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour at that point, and you know, it all happens in like 2 or 3 strides.
Bill, Mark Cassidy said this morning that he felt sorry for the West, he felt sorry for maximum security, he felt sorry for you had to win that way. What are your thoughts on
I certainly appreciate that, and I don't think anybody wants to win that way. You know, you'd rather have it a clear-cut victory with no objections, no foul, you know, and not have to answer the questions that we're, you know, that we're talking about now. You know, it's just, you never want to have to make excuses. And, you know, we're justifying what happened.
If you do go to the Preakness, do you hope that Maximum Security does as well?
Everybody's going to show up. You know, I guess it's hard to know. I don't. You know, I respect that horse, the ability. I mean, it's hard not to respect the ability of the horse. It's just he didn't keep a straight course.
He did change leads. You can see that pretty
He
quickly.
changed early.
Early,
He jumped-
right.
yeah,
Does that
he-
make them kind of come out? Just is it matter
Well,
for
I
us
think
when
that
horses change leads?
allowed him to come out. I think when the horse decided to go out, the first thing he did was switch his leads. You know, I don't think that happened because he was. I think that was all part of the move.
It wasn't the cause; it was a function of it.
I think I would say yes. That's well put.
Hey Bill, just to expand on Jenny's question there just a little bit, I think, you know, I think the sport is probably starved for a good, you know, having a couple of good horses go at each other, kind of creating a little rivalry. So I think maybe along those lines, you think it could be, you know, good for racing to kind of have them both show up at Pimlico.
Sure. I mean, you know, I'm sure the people that bet on Maximum Security yesterday would come back and probably back him again. And I think a little rivalry is always good. I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know that it's, at this point, it's certainly not affirmed to know it.
Tell us you at least put 2 across the board on them.
Huh?
Tell us you at least put 2 across the board on them.
I didn't bet on either one. You know, I got a lot invested and a lot to win or a lot to, you know what I mean, just based on how they run. So, you know, but you know, I know a lot of people that backed, you know, Country House because he's such a large price. You know, he's a huge price.
You surprised with that?
Yes, a little bit, yeah. But you know, you can have a good horse in the Derby and be 10 to 1. You know what I mean? So, you know, a horse that, you know, he didn't win any of his prep races. I mean, he was coming on. If you liked him in the race, you had to like him because you believed he was a horse that would get the mile and a quarter. I mean, that's the thing that he had. You know, that's the ace in the hole for him.
He'd be more suitable probably for the Belmont than the Creek.
I think he would be. Yeah, probably would be.
Like when did the decision?
Although, I mean, you know, with that being said, I mean, when they were at the 8th pole, I mean, he was head and head for the lead. I mean, he actually, I believe, at one juncture, you know, kind of had his head and you know, I mean, he looked like he was going to win it by himself, and then the horse came back on him on the inside of it.
He's always discussed as being kind of a slow breaking horse. Can improve a little bit on that yet?
He certainly broke better and put himself in. That's what we were surprised, you know, that he got into that position early. And I mean, he was just cruising down the backside. I mean, he had him on a long rein, and he was traveling probably as good or better than anybody in the race.
Do you think the light bulb's coming on with this
I
horse?
think
And what
the
a
light-
better time.
I think the light bulb came on yesterday, and we've been waiting for that because I don't think he's ever figured out how to give 100% before, and I think he gave, you know, 99 yesterday. I mean, it certainly looked like it was a big move forward, so to speak, from any of his previous races.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
All right.
Have you been in the Preakness many